There is a stretch of land in northern New Mexico that seems forgotten by time. It is an arid, vast, and silent landscape where the desert wind is the only constant soundtrack. It is here, on the Jicarilla Apache Reservation, that the small, isolated community of Dulce is found. To most, it's just a dot on the map. But to others, Dulce is the epicenter of one of the darkest and most terrifying secrets in human history. In July 1987, a woman named Christa Tilton was driving down one of these lonely roads when her reality unraveled. Suddenly, the world went black, and when she awoke, 3 hours of her life had simply disappeared, vanished without a trace. What happened in that time gap? The answer was not in her conscious mind, but in the nightmares that would soon begin to haunt her. Christa Tilton's story is not just an abduction account. It is a descent into a meticulously designed nightmare, an underground labyrinth where human science and alien technology seem to dance a macabre waltz. Prepare yourself, because the memories she recovered point not just to the stars, but to the terrifying depths beneath our own feet. Initially, Christa tried to rationalize. Fatigue, the desert heat. Perhaps she had simply dozed off for a moment, and, by luck, the car had stopped without incident. But logic couldn't erase a lingering sense of dread. In the days that followed, a constant anxiety took root in her soul, the unsettling feeling of being perpetually watched. And then the nightmares began. Nights of sleep transformed into scenes of panic. Fragmented images of strange creatures with large, empty eyes invaded her mind, causing her to awake with a pounding heart and a body drenched in cold sweat. She knew, with a gut feeling, that these nocturnal terrors were echoes of those 3 lost hours. Driven by a desperate need for answers, Christa dove into a private investigation. She discovered a world she never knew existed, a universe of accounts from others who had also experienced the missing time phenomenon. And in almost every case, the explanation was the same: alien abduction. The idea was terrifying, but it was also the only piece that seemed to fit her mental puzzle. That's how she sought out a ufologist who presented her with a single, risky path out of her amnesic labyrinth: hypnotic regression, a controversial technique, perhaps capable of unlocking the memories her mind had sealed away to protect her. Christa accepted. She couldn't have imagined that by opening that door, she would find not just the key to her enigma, but the entrance to a facility that defies our understanding of reality. Under the trance state induced by hypnosis, the barriers in her mind began to crumble. The first memory to emerge was of the road. She remembered stopping the car upon spotting a strange figure sitting on a hill. And then the terror materialized. 2 small creatures, standing no more than 5 feet tall, approached her vehicle. They were thin, with long arms, disproportionate heads, and those deep, soulless black eyes, the classic description of the Greys. The car doors, which she was sure she had locked, opened effortlessly. The creatures grabbed her by the arms, and despite her resistance, their combined strength was overwhelming. She was dragged outside toward a large flying object hovering silently in front of her car. The next memory was a jump. Now she was no longer on the road, but lying on a cold metal table inside the craft. As she sat up, another being approached. This one was different, taller, and with a strangely familiar, almost human appearance. In her memories, Christa would nickname him the Guide. He offered her a cup with a liquid and, without words, instructed her to drink it. As soon as she did, a wave of calm and energy coursed through her body. The fear dissipated, replaced by a controlled tranquility. Then the guide led her out of the craft. They were no longer on the road. They were in a desert area, at the foot of a mountain. In the darkness, a faint light emanated from the entrance of a cave, and that's where they walked. At the mouth of the cave, the strangeness deepened. A man, or something that looked perfectly human, stood guard. He wore a red jumpsuit, like a military uniform, and carried an automatic weapon. The guide greeted him as if they were acquaintances, and the guard allowed them to pass. The collaboration was undeniable. They entered a tunnel that descended steeply into the earth. Soon they encountered another guard and a computerized checkpoint with cameras and scanners. To the left, a small transit vehicle was parked in a groove in the rock. They boarded. The journey was long, silent, always deeper, until they reached another secured area. There, Christa was instructed to step onto a device that looked like a scale, facing a screen. Lights flashed, calculations appeared, and a kind of punch card was issued. Her identification for this place. "Where are we?" she asked the guide. The answer was cryptic. "I am showing you things you need to know for the future. We have just entered the first level of the institution." A large doorless elevator took them even further down to level 2. What she saw there was a shocking cognitive dissonance. It looked like an office building. People in normal clothes walked through the hallways, busy with their tasks, completely ignoring the presence of Christa and the alien guide. But this normality was a facade. Armed guards in colored uniforms were everywhere, and as she passed an area that looked like a huge factory, she saw the truth. A small disc-shaped craft was being repaired by several Greys who worked with mechanical efficiency, indifferent to everything around them. The journey continued. Another elevator took them to level 5. The fear, which the drink had suppressed, began to return with full force. On level 5, she was taken to a room and instructed to change into a hospital gown. She was weighed, measured, and scanned by an electrical device. Then she was escorted down an ever-deepening corridor. That's when an overwhelming smell hit her. A pungent chemical odor she immediately recognized from her time as a nurse: formaldehyde. The guide tried to calm her, but the smell was an omen. They passed a gigantic hall where enormous metal tanks were lined up. They were over 13 feet high, connected to sensors and computers. From above, structures resembling mechanical arms dipped into the tanks. A constant humming filled the air, as if something was moving inside, submerged. When Christa tried to get closer to peek at the contents, the guide grabbed her firmly. "You don't need to see that," he said, with a finality that ended the matter. "It would only complicate things." He dragged her to the next room, a vast laboratory. The technology there was otherworldly, equipment she could never have imagined. With his back to her, a gray handled metal instruments on a counter. The sound reminded her of preparing surgical tools. She was ordered to sit on a table in the center of the room. The panic was now uncontrollable. That's when a human man dressed as a doctor entered. He and the guide exchanged a few words. Then the guide smiled at Christa. "I'll wait outside. It will only be a few minutes." And he left her, alone. The doctor called for an assistant, and another gray entered the room. Christa's fear turned into silent tears. None of the creatures, human or alien, showed any reaction to her distress. A heavy drowsiness overtook Christa, an altered state of consciousness where she felt everything but was paralyzed. She felt hands and instruments examining her body, outside and in. In a moment of clarity, she looked up and met the face of a gray, inches from her own, its unfathomable black eyes staring into her. It was in that instant that a sharp, excruciating pain shot through her body. She screamed. Immediately, the human doctor approached and rubbed a cold substance on her stomach. The pain ceased as quickly as it had begun. The efficiency was as impressive as the total lack of empathy. She begged them to let her go, but they continued their work, methodical, cold, indifferent. When they finished, she was told to get up and change in a small adjacent room. As she put on her clothes, she noticed blood running down her legs, as if her menstrual cycle had started. She was so terrified and exhausted that she just got dressed and walked out. The guide and the doctor were talking in a corner. She stood there, feeling more alone and violated than ever. A specimen, nothing more. As he led her back, the guide broke the silence. "It was necessary," he said, "and you will forget." The journey back to the surface included one last terrible stop. The transit vehicle stopped in front of a massive, transparent glass wall. Behind it was a sight that would freeze anyone's soul. Inside vertical, tubular chambers stood human figures, people of all types, ethnicities, and ages, motionless like wax statues. Christa approached the glass, placing her hand on the cold surface, desperately trying to detect any sign of life, any response, but there was none. She didn't know if they were alive or dead, trapped in some kind of suspended existence. Nearby in cages were animals, dogs, cats, deer, also motionless, also trapped in that state of suspended existence. It was a collection, a macabre zoo of Earth's life forms cataloged and stored in the depths of a secret base. After this hellish vision, the guide took her back to the craft. There, her memory of the last few hours was erased. The next thing she would remember was waking up confused in her car on the side of the road with a 3-hour void in her life and the nameless terror planted in her subconscious. The memories recovered by Christa Tilton led her to a single terrifying conclusion. She had been taken to the infamous Dulce Base. Her account, with its wealth of detail about human-alien collaboration, the multiple underground levels and the biological experiments, became one of the central pieces of one of the most persistent conspiracy theories in ufology. Over time, Christa claimed that this was not the only time. She reported subsequent abductions, reproductive procedures to create hybrid children, and even the possibility of being a hybrid herself. Her life became a relentless search for answers, transforming her from an ordinary woman into a key witness of a hidden world. Christa Tilton's account leaves us at an uncomfortable crossroads. It is the story of a single woman, yet it echoes universal fears. What really happens in the dark corners of our world, under the cover of secret bases and isolated deserts? Are we just specimens in a cosmic laboratory far larger than we can comprehend? Is her story a map to a buried truth, or a labyrinth created by deep trauma? The answer, perhaps, remains guarded in the silence of the New Mexico desert. What does your intuition say about today's account? Is there a piece of this puzzle that, for you, is the key to it all? Leave your perspective in the comments. Every theory enriches our investigation. If this journey into the depths of the earth has awakened your curiosity, help us continue to unravel these enigmas. Every like acts as a beacon for YouTube, showing that the search for answers must go on. It's the fuel that drives us to the next case. And if you're not yet part of our community, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single piece of our investigation. Together, we are stronger in the search for truth.